frequent services. The plan invests a lot here. The 2X to the airport, the number 1 Dixie Highway, the number 7 through the core of Covington, the number 25 on US 27, and the South Bank Shuttle / number 12 to Dayton Bellevue. Those are the 7-day-a-week high frequency routes that would receive a lot of investment under this plan. I'm going to talk about
25.
the proposed
What do you take?
quicker. Delay here, apologize. Let's talk about the number 25. Again, proposal would be 25-minute frequency from early morning till midnight, 7 days a week consistently. Much more consistent and better service than the 25 has today. The recommendation was to bring the route further north and end it at the Meyer Park, the Meyer at US 27 and AA, as opposed to the Village Green Park and Ride a few miles south. As I go through this, I'll tell you where we've been getting a lot of comments to date. That's one of the areas we've received a lot of pushback on, a lot of feedback. Access to the Walmart, we're hearing, and from our operators and from our customers, is probably one of the top 3 most commented responses that we've gotten so far. That's the 25. The 12 South Bank Shuttle. This is a recommendation. You can see the number 12 is current, is in purple in the top left. And if I dare skip forward here, the South Bank Shuttle is the purple in the top left. There's a lot of overlap with those 2 routes. The consultant saw that, and they said, these 2 routes are almost identical. If you pull those resources, you could extend the shuttle all the way through Dayton, Bellevue and Dayton, and have 15-minute service all day on a combined route. So the plan would be to extend the South Bank Shuttle and take the place of the number 12 that would essentially cover the route that 12 covers today. The other recommendation would be a park and ride at 6th and Donnemeyer. That doesn't exist today, but we would love to have to boost ridership. Moving into the neighborhood service, these are on Ludlow, Bromley, City Heights, and Latonia Terrace in Covington, 16 West Newport, the 33. Let's talk about the 16. So the 16, as you can see on this map today, as you all know, currently serves West Newport and Fort Thomas and NKU. There's some overlap with the 25. We look at the ridership figures, and a lot of the ridership is coming from the hospital. The recommendation would be to truncate the route at the hospital, at the old St. Luke and the St. E. Fort Thomas, and provide 40-minute service with a wide span 7 days a week. That would effectively eliminate service through North Fort Thomas Avenue to where the 25 picks back up south of the city. Jobs Express, these are routes that are mostly focused on the industrial parts of our community, Hebron, Florence Industrial, so I won't go into detail there. And then the last section is the commute express routes. And so this is where we have park and ride service. By and large, the recommendation is to truncate a lot of these. A lot of the ridership, almost all of the ridership on many of these routes comes from folks who are driving to a park and ride. If those folks can drive a few more miles to a park and ride closer in, we can save a lot of time and a lot of money and reinvest those resources in the frequency that we saw before. So with respect to Campbell County, the recommendation is to move the 25X north to the Meyer. Again, whether that would be the Meyer or the Alexandria Village Green would depend upon where the 25 winds up. They would go together. That is it in terms of the Campbell County recommendations for future routes, it's important to note, and in full transparency, that's why we're here, is to talk about what might not be there in the future. We're showing the number 11 being eliminated in Fort Thomas. That is a AM and PM commuter-based service. Not all, but many of those folks could drive to Newport Shopping Center and use the 25 to get in and out of downtown Cincinnati. We've already talked about how the 12 would be combined with the South Bank Shuttle. The 35X. The 35X is our east-west express that connects NKU to Fort Wright to Florence. That route has been in operation for about 6 years, and from a performance perspective, it hasn't reached our expectations for ridership. And so it is a relatively poor performing route with respect to efficiency. So the recommendation is to remove the 35X. So again, this is the existing network. I'm going to try to toggle back and forth. This is the existing network, and you can see how large of an area it serves. And the proposed network is a much tighter area. Again, toggling back and forth, that's existing, that's proposed. One more. So when you look at what areas would not be served under the new plan, these are the red circles. And I mentioned Fort Thomas, I mentioned Alexandria, and then again, there are areas in Kent and Boone County as well that would no longer be served under the plan. We showed a lot of lines on maps. This next part is about the service that's behind those lines. We talked about frequency. This is a diagram that kind of shows you how the system operates today. If you move from left to right, you're moving from 4 in the morning until midnight. So as you travel from left to right, you're moving throughout the day. Each of those colored bars represent a route in our system. The warmer the color, so the oranges, the reds, that is the longer frequency. So that is bigger gaps between buses. The cooler the color, so the yellow, the green, the blue, are higher frequency services. So you can see here that we have, the red represents over 60 minutes. We have a lot of service that the bus comes less frequently than once an hour. We have a lot of orange, which is between 31 and 60 minutes. We have a little bit of yellow and almost no blue and green, right? So we have a lot of service spread. It's also very peak heavy. Look at all the routes that are operating at 6 a.m. and then look at the number of routes that are operating at noon. It's almost half. And then again, at 3 p.m., we're back to full speed again. Under the proposal, this is what the system would look like. So many fewer routes, a lot cooler colors, which means a lot more frequency, consistent frequencies all day. In the evening after 8, some would drop off, just because it's not necessary in some places to have 20-minute service at 10 o'clock at night, and much lower peak. So from an operational efficiency perspective, if you were running a manufacturing plant and this was your production schedule, or this was, this is obviously easier to operate. It's more efficient. We're not taking buses in and out of the garage. We operate, depending upon how you cut it, 800 to 900 trips a day. And to do so more efficiently gives us more resources to run more frequency. So that's the case of the weekday. On the weekend, you can see frequencies drop even further. Almost all orange and a lot of red. This is the proposal. For those routes, 7 to 8 frequencies, much higher. Much better service for those that need the bus on the weekend. Same on Sunday, right? I mean, it's a significant change in terms of what the weekend service would look like. And again, what we know about jobs is that service jobs are the fastest growing segment in our community, and most service jobs don't operate Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So, from a numbers perspective, I'm going to move into the numbers part of the presentation. Where has this brought us from a planning perspective? If I mentioned earlier that we were at E, we operate 203, this is the planning numbers for the routes that we're talking about. We operate 203,000 hours a year. Today, 29% of those hours are going toward frequent service, routes that come consistently 30 minutes or better. 71% of the hours that we're operating today are for service that operates more than 30 minutes, so 30, 60, 90-minute frequencies. So we are in the coverage business today, right? As you move toward the left, and you look at the plan shows that we would operate fewer hours. So the footprint in terms of total hours would actually be slightly smaller, about 6%. And under the plan, we'd operate 69% of our hours would be devoted to frequent service and only 31 to coverage. So we've moved from basically from an E to a B. And when you do that, there are hard decisions to be made. And that's some of those red circles that you saw on that map were areas that service was pushed in or was consolidated, or folks, especially in the urban core, there's some places where the decision is proposed to have folks walk further to more frequent service. We're getting feedback on that as well. So this was the bold recommendation. We were informed by our counties and by our board that we needed to be bold. We needed to try to chart a different trajectory for our system, and this is how far we moved. When you look at the map, you don't necessarily get all of that. You have to look at it together. So that's where we are at this point. More numbers. I mentioned the fact that it shows here, the top line is existing, the second line is the proposed. It shows that we're shortening frequencies, improving frequencies across the board. The number of routes proposed goes from 27 to 18. So just in terms of understanding how this system works, if you're new to it or if you want to use it, we're covering most of the area that we're covering today, but we're combining routes and making things more logical from the user's perspective. I mentioned before, revenue hours, I mean, that's essentially a proxy for cost. You know, we're a labor-based business. There's the hours that operators are out driving. That would be reduced by 6%. This last number, VOMS, technical term, vehicles operating maximum service. At any given time today, what is the total number of buses we have, the highest number of buses we have out on the road to operate our service? What does that peak look like? I showed how we're very peak heavy. For these routes alone, we have 75 buses on the street today to cover those routes. Under the plan, that would drop to 48. Again, these are planning figures. Maybe that's not a full 36% drop, but it definitely means that we've flattened out peaks and we need fewer physical buses to make the system work as well. So another efficiency to be gained. So with the shrinking of the footprint, there are other outcomes that have to do with access that we think are important. And these are the numbers that we, along with our consultant and along with what our research tells us, should hopefully long-term drive ridership growth. And that is the access to good transit. So the first box up here just shows you that we're shrinking our footprint. The proposal is to shrink the footprint. So the total square mileage, when we look at that, the existing service with those long tails, when you bring those in, your service area gets smaller, which means there are fewer people, less employment, and transportation disadvantage. Those are census tracts that have low income, zero car, minority households. So all of those numbers get smaller because you have a smaller footprint. But when you ask the question, who has access to good transit under the plan? So this is access within a quarter mile. It's a short walking distance. How many people today have access to 15-minute bus service? Well, today, less than 10,000, 9,600. Under the plan, that would go up by 65%. So almost 16,000 people could walk to 15-minute service. The number of jobs that are within a quarter mile of 15-minute bus service would go up by 10%. The number of zero-car, low-income households that can walk to 15-minute service would go up by 94%. The last box is, what about a quarter mile from 30-minute bus service? And you see the numbers are even bigger there. So 50,000 people, only 20,000 people today can walk to a 30-minute route. Under the plan, 50,000 people could. Again, low-income households, you're going from 5,700 to to 14,800 can walk to regular, frequent 30-minute bus service. So this is where we feel that if you make these changes in the short term, you probably lose a little bit of ridership, but these are the numbers that we feel would help grow the system in the long term. So there are other recommendations. That is essentially from a service planning and service operations perspective what the recommendations are. There are other project-based recommendations that our consultants saw in terms of, stop spacing and things like that that would, all things being equal, help the system. Our consultant also looked at our door-to-door service for individuals with disabilities. That's our RAMP service for those that are familiar. And what they, well, maybe I'll come back to the RAMP discussion, I apologize. Before I leave the fixed route world, we also asked the consultant to say, work within the budget. We started this process knowing that there were fiscal concerns about being able to fund the system long term, and our counties, our board, were giving us the direction that we should work within the budgetary resources we have, and that's what the plan supposes. We also asked the consultant, if you were to build this system with a clean slate and a blank page, what would it look like? And they did that, and they built, and with our help, built what we would consider the future vision of the tank network. And the reason I show this slide, one, it's a lot more service. It would restore the east-west connection. It would restore service to certain neighborhoods. It would increase frequencies from 20 minutes to 15 minutes in some area. It's an ambitious plan. It's an expensive plan. It's not one that we can afford. But what it shows us is if we can get the system to grow, this is the direction we would grow it in. If we had, quote unquote, all the money in the world, we wouldn't build the system back exactly the way that it is today from a technical perspective. So that's just kind of some planning thought that we wanted to share. Back to the discussion about the RAMP service, the door-to-door service for individuals with disabilities. Again, when you have somebody with fresh eyes look at this, they say, Tank is required by federal law to provide door-to-door service for individuals that live within 3/4 of a mile of a regular bus route. It requires that you provide it. It requires that you only charge a certain fare, and it requires that it's 7 days a week and all of those things. Tank provides a lot of service beyond what is required by the federal government in our RAMP service. And if our footprint got smaller, that would be even more true in the future. The consultant then says, do you want to continue to provide that service? That's a cost. It's an expensive part of your budget. Do you want to continue to provide it? So we asked that question of our board. We asked that question of our stakeholders in our counties. And the feedback that we received was that the community wants to continue to provide that door-to-door service. However, we need to look at the service that is above and beyond what is required and see if we can make some adjustments so we can affect the cost curve in a positive way long term. So here, you see in the areas that are required, the more densely populated areas, trips cost about $28 a piece. Fare is $2.50. In the more suburban and rural areas where trips are longer, the average cost is $45, but the fare is the same. So this is a preliminary recommendation. We have not yet vetted this and done public involvement with all of our RAMP passengers, but the recommendation would be to increase the fare to $5 for those folks that are in the required ADA area to help, again, adjust that cost curve long term. We'll go through a public involvement process with our RAMP clients before any of this would become final. But again, we just wanted to be clear about where we are and transparent with our thinking. So where are we? I talked about at the very beginning that we're in the process of taking feedback. We had a public meeting in January 7th in Kenton County in Covington to talk about the recommendations. We've been at all 3 fiscal courts over the last 2 weeks, and our timeline here is to get all the feedback that we're receiving, see what adjustments we can make to the plan, and I think what I'm hearing from our board and stakeholders, what adjustments can we make to the plan without watering it down so much that we're back to where we started? And also have this wrapped up within the next couple of months in terms of what that recommendation is. So then we can come back to the community and say, we heard you, these are the changes we were able to make, these are the changes we weren't able to make, and start working on our budget, which, as you all know, starts July 1, create an implementation plan, and then begin the operation of the new system in the fall. So this would require complete rewrite of every schedule in the system. It's a complete overhaul. It takes time. Our goal would be to have it on the street November, December of 2020. So that's why we're here tonight, to hear from the court, to hear from you all what we should be thinking about as we work hard in February to make a final set of recommendations. You've all seen our website, Facebook. Thank Gina, myself. We're all places that you can provide feedback.
Can I get you to cover, because I've heard this a couple times, I
Yes.
think it might be helpful for this group in particular if you can talk a little bit about the South Bank shuttle and the Dayton route combinations and the suspension bridge and what that does mean and doesn't mean and what future possibilities that could provide in terms of vehicle type.
Got it. Yes.
This crowd might be interested.
Okay, I'm going to try to get back there.
It'll take you a while.
The clickers, yeah, I'm getting there. So as I'm clicking, I'll talk. So today, the South Bank shuttle goes over the suspension bridge. Let's go back 10 years ago. Every tank bus that left the transit center went over the suspension bridge. The transportation cabinet, the state transportation cabinet, put a weight limit on that suspension bridge. That forced all of our service off the suspension bridge and onto the Clayway Bailey. The South Bank shuttle was greatly affected by that because people take short trips and that's a delay in getting to that short trip. We found the biggest vehicle that we could find that met the weight restrictions, and it happened to be the cute little trolleys that we operate today. So there's the genesis of, it wasn't a marketing mastermind, it was the best vehicle that we could find at the time to get over that bridge. So with where we are today, we've been operating on the bridge for 10 years with the South Bank shuttle. Over the last 2 years, because of the health of the suspension bridge, we have been on detour almost as much as we've been on the bridge. So we've kind of decided from a planning perspective that we need all of our service to operate on healthy bridges. We don't want to make a plan. Here we go. So under the old plan, this is the current operation, right? We're in the main Strauss area to the Coney Transit Center, over the suspension bridge, Taylor Southgate, and then east to Bellevue. In the future, the recommendation is to not use that suspension bridge because of the issues that I talked about before. It's also to not use the 4th Street Bridge. The 4th Street Bridge is also weight restricted. So our goal is once if this plan comes to fruition and we're not using the suspension bridge or the 4th Street Bridge, we can use any vehicle on the shuttle route. It would be a long-term plan to get there. But the trolley vehicles that we use are problematic. You know, they're difficult to operate, and they're not the best for our passengers either. But they're the only vehicle that we can use right now on the suspension bridge. So, I think, does that answer your question?
Okay, we've got quite a list of people. More people interested in tank than the Second Amendment. So Ken Bowman is first, and we've got a whole group of people, Ken, that you can address your concerns to, and it's a luxury that is seldom afforded, so have at it.
I appreciate it. I'm a fourth-term council member in Fort Thomas, and I'm getting an earful. People don't know who to address the concerns to. That I mentioned to Tom Lampier, he said he hasn't been hearing from anybody, but they don't know, so they come to us and think we can solve the problem. So I've been getting lots of emails and stuff on the street and phone call and everything else about this because we're basically, the plan, should it go forward as proposed, would basically erase Fort Thomas, 11 is gone. In my view and others, mass transit's necessary to keep the desirability of the city. I mean, to make it a place we want to be, it kind of, don't have that, it really can be detrimental to our desirability. cool to ride the bus. I don't see anything from Tank, you know, in mainstream media, about making it a desirable option. So that's just one point I wanted to make, and then another is, I addressed with Mr. Triel earlier and was told that there's not enough cost savings to right sizing the vehicles. If ridership is down, why do we have this massive bus when a smaller vehicle, I would assume, would be considerably less, you know, to maintain and operate? So I would hope there's more thought to right sizing the vehicles. In my view too, I think for, you know, it might be a small number as far as the demographic goes, but mass transit, I look at it as a basic human right that should be funded, from the county, the city, local governments, should subsidize this. It's a human right that should be there, and everybody's going to expect it after so many years of being in existence. To my knowledge, there's been no conversation from the county or Tank to the city, to Fort Thomas or other cities about any kind of cost sharing options, anything that might save the system from going away as far as cost sharing goes. I haven't been approached, or as far as I know, our administrator or mayor has not been approached about any kind of action in that direction. So those are the points I wanted to make.
I can help you with one of them. Is it an 80% subsidy, something like that?
The county governments provide 70% of
70%.
the operation, for the system.
So do I have a conversation about the city maybe ponying up a little more to save this amenity?
Go ahead. Is it okay if I respond? So,
Okay.
I think it's more than appropriate for the city to set up a meeting with Tank. We're meeting with a lot of stakeholders over the next couple weeks. Other cities, other institutions, and this again was the beginning of, we had to put this out and begin the dialogue and see who wanted to engage, because we've had some recommendations that have seen thumbs up across the board, and we're not necessarily going out meeting with all 35 cities. So if this is it's an invitation to engage in.
Invitation from our city, you would then engage in, it's not, you're not gonna come to us and.
Oh, we're here now, let's do it, and we can talk about doing that very soon, next week.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And all things there have to be balanced, and you know, it is an infrastructure need, I would say, to provide transit. And I think the amount of support that's provided shows the commitment to it, and the importance that elected officials place upon it when they're, you know, willing to devote that much money to it. In point of fact, this whole exercise is to try to preserve the system for the people, and that might not be possible if the trends continue. So, anyway. Next on the chart here is Connie Grubbs.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for an excellent presentation. I live on Highland Avenue, which is where the 16 bus runs down, and I just want to speak out and let you know that there is not a day that goes by that I do not see someone waiting for that bus. And I'm also really concerned because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, do these proposals cut out the VA entirely from the routes?
Correct.
Okay, so I find that really concerning. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Tiffany Budd, if I'm pronouncing that right, if I read it right.
Should know me from the county council.
Yeah, that's
Where I
right.
am in the system. I'm not good at winging it, so I'm gonna read my on here. Your support for public transportation to advocate for continue to increase funding for tanks. As an resident, I ride the bus or the shuttle over to Cincinnati frequently. As an NKU employee, I'm able to ride for free thanks to Thanks You Pass program. Our students are also able to ride for free. This is a program that is beneficial to our school and to our region, and one that we hope can continue for a long time to come. Also, as an NKU employee, I'm here advocating for continue to increase funding in hopes that Tank will not be forced to eliminate the 35X route, a route that many students and employees utilize. Elimination of this route could potentially affect our enrollment if students billions of dollars are being invested in electric buses, we should be investing in them as well. People care about sustainability and social responsibility, especially younger generations. Electrifying the bus fleet will positively affect ridership while contributing to a more sustainable region. In summary, as you begin planning for the next fiscal year, I hope you will continue to invest funding in TANK and will consider additional funding so they can further improve their services and make the more encompassing future vision of TANK a reality.
And if at any point you lose, go ahead. Let's see here. Yes, ma'am.
It's very difficult to hear these speakers. I could barely understand what she
And-
said.
Is that my phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my thought, I almost.
Is this
I think that, is that
The
my,
ones before
live?
you,
We know?
and it also happened at the Second Amendment thing. You just can't hear it very well.
Okay. We have our technologist on the job.
I'm an efficient tester.
He doubles as a police chief, by the way.
This is where it goes to heck. So I'm gonna go to my boss.
Hillary's next, Hillary Landwehr.
Okay, I'm gonna use my teaching voice.
There we go.
All right, what he said, what she said, and what she said, okay, ditto. Also, I am now officially a senior citizen. I'm an occasional user of Tank. I used to be a religious user of Tank to Northern until I ran into the 2-hour dinner break they used to have, okay? And I was finishing 5 minutes after the dinner break started, and I had to wait 2 hours to go home. So then I started driving. But as a senior citizen who takes 45 minutes to walk from my house to the 25 bus stop, I'm thinking this is going to hurt me big time. And a lot of other people in Fort Thomas, it's going to hurt big time because it just takes too long to walk to the bus. And you say park in the Newport Park and Ride. Well, the whole idea is that I may be too old to drive. You want me on the road? I don't think so. So, no, my concern is that you're truncating the 16, so I can't get to NKU and I can't get downtown, the two places I go the most. And apparently they're also, I'm also concerned about the VA, because I see a lot of people on the bus coming from the VA. And so I'm just thinking that this is basically, as Ken said, erasing Fort Thomas from the picture. And there's a lot of us in that town. So, yes, that.
Well put. Ron Ferris?
I have a question. I was under the impersonation that the new route is going to stop at Main Street, Dave.
So you're talking about the 12
Yes.
South Bank combination?
Yes.
You're referring to the eastern end of it where it turns
Yeah.
around in Dayton? Yeah, so right now we're showing it being a much shorter, let's see if I can look through it. Hold on a second, we're gonna answer your question.
Right now, I think it runs all the way down to Clark Street.
That's
Is that
correct. Yeah, you can see it here where the tail goes further east and makes the turnaround there.
Yes.
The proposal would be a shorter turnaround, and again, it's all in an aim of trying to shorten the route where we can, but go ahead. You're
My
correct with your
concern is
assumption.
I own some rental property and I have some handicapped people. They do the best they can to walk a couple of blocks, because it's gonna be a burden, and they might wind up moving. The other thing is, we have hundreds of apartments built right behind, the furthest east part of Dayton. There's people are gonna be riding buses also. Probably in the future, we'll probably have to put some kind of steps coming across the flood wall so they can access the bus. If you stop your route at Main Street, you're gonna cut off, make it very tough for people to walk 4 blocks down to get on the bus, and pretty much rip the people off behind the flood wall, all the brand new parking we have down there.
Thank you for your comments.
And that's all I just, I like to keep staying routes all the way down to Clark Street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tyler Mowberry, is that right?
Yes.
Luckily, I work in the school system, so I already have the teacher voice as well. All right, good evening. So first, I just want to mention TANK is a vital service to our community and economy. It's a service that provides reliable transportation to work, school, and get groceries, etc. However, TANK's proposal will leave literally thousands of people without bus service, leaving entire cities out of service, such as Alexandria, which has one of the largest, if not the largest store in the county, Walmart, as well as a large shopping center. With the changes of the 25, ending at Meyer, as well as more populated cities such as Fort Thomas, with the changes of the 16, or the cut of the 16, and the elimination of the 11, where a lot of people ride to work and school every day, including NKU. I know a lot of students ride the 16 to NKU. They're trying to save money. They're college students. They don't have a lot of money. You've been there, done that, right? I also want to mention that these cuts to the 16 will also, as other people have mentioned, will also cut the VA hospital in Fort Thomas, leaving veterans without reliable transportation. I rode the 16 the other day, someone who came in from out of town to go to the VA hospital in Fort Thomas, one of the leading VA hospitals in the nation. She flew in to get a certain operation done there, then took the bus to the VA hospital. She would not be able to do that with these cuts. You know, I noticed ridership is going down because cuts keep happening to the routes. Give the 11, for example. Cuts were done back in 2017. Ridership, of course, went down because the service isn't as open anymore. So they make cuts to the 11. Ridership is going to go down because of these cuts. Plain and simple, there's no way about it. So are we going to be here in two years or so, 2 to 3 years, talking about more route cuts? And if so, when will these route cuts end? When we have no system left? Because ridership will keep going down with these cuts. So I understand something has to be done. I talk to people all about these cuts, all about these changes. I say, you know, the 25, for example, won't go to Walmart with these cuts. You know what they say to me? I know the bus went to Walmart. I know the bus went here. The problem is, public transportation, bus being the number one thing, has a negative connotation around it. Only poor people ride the bus. When in fact, bus will help you, riding a bus will save you money. No, you don't have to worry about car insurance, car payments. The car breaks, if your vehicle breaks down going to work, if it's a bus, okay, wait for the next bus. I'm not seeing dollar signs. Whereas if it's my car that breaks down, I'm seeing dollar signs. Another thing, advertise. Let people know, hey, you want to go to Walmart? Try taking the bus. Be at Walmart. Tell people, hey, next time take the 25 out here. It'll save you money. It'll help you out. You know, advertise. Tell people about what's going on with the bus. And like I said, try to eliminate that negative connotation somehow. There has to be a way to do that, and I'd love to work with Tank on how we can do that.